Hello there, welcome to my channel. In this episode, we're going to do the unboxing and introduction for the Bigme Hibreak Pro. So what is this device? It's basically an eink phone, a cellular phone with an eink screen. Bigme is one of the kind of second tier companies, I would argue, kind of in the e-ink space, providing a wide range of devices that have e-ink screens. They've tended to focus on things like note-taking devices and reading devices, but they've definitely splintered in other areas as well. For example, they've done computer monitors, all-in-one PCs, and so on. And phones, of course, is now on their list too. So about a year ago, not quite, they released budget models of their e-ink phones. And now we're seeing the release of what they were calling their Pro version of their phone, which is really more analogous to kind of a mid-level phone in the industry. In fact, if we can put on the screen here, these are the stats basically for the Bigme Hibreak phone. And I went online just to get a sense of what a cutting edge or highly rated mid-level phone is. And PC Magazine pointed toward the Google Pixel 8a. And when I compare the stats of that device to this device, there's just a lot in common between the two. So this phone from a specs perspective does seem very well positioned kind of in that mid-level phone space, of course, starting with the price. Now, there are a few notable differences between this phone and the Google phone. The most obvious, of course, is the screen itself. The Pixel phone is using a traditional LCD variant of a screen, whereas in this case, we're using an e-ink screen on the Hibreak Pro, and I'll get to why that might be important in a second. But in addition to that, you probably have better cameras on the Google Pixel phone. You've got no type of dust or water resistant certification for the Bigme, which you also have for the Google phone. But outside of those things, the stats are remarkably similar. So, a really good spec for a mid-size phone for this Bigme Pro device. Now let's talk just real quickly about why would you even consider going with e-ink on a phone. And I think there's probably two things that kind of come to my mind. The first is that there are people that get eye strain in looking in LCD monitors all day long, whether it's from their computer, their phone, maybe they're consuming content with an LCD screen. So there's an advantage with e-ink where not only is it more battery efficient, but it also is much easier on the eyes because inherently the screen doesn't shine any light at your face. Now, there is a small exception to that, which is in darker environments, you might turn on the front lighting on the device, which isn't coming from the screen, but rather around it. And this does provide some illumination and a little bit of a glow that comes back at you, but it's not the same as with LCDs. So e-ink screens are inherently gentler on the eyes. And so that's an advantage of this phone. The other thing, and I'm probably not the best advocate for this, but there is a sense of, e-ink devices are pretty responsive. They're definitely usable, but they do kind of slow you down a little bit. And a lot of times they're a little bit easier to turn off notifications. And so you'll hear this concept of distraction free or a phone that's less distracting. And so that's the other kind of thing I think that e-ink is trying to promise in this scenario is that here you have a fully functional phone, but one that doesn't necessarily lead you to wanting to do a lot of gaming, for example, on the phone. Or maybe you're not going to swipe as much through social media as a result of that it's not, because it's in black and white, for example, and not in this high refresh rate type of a screen, that it's a little more amenable to having less distraction by using an e-ink device. Not my area of expertise, but that's an argument that I have heard some people say. E-ink phones themselves are not actually new. I'd mentioned that Bigme had one, last year, but there's been other phones that have been out through the years. They've never fully caught on, although there's certainly been a number of people that have been kind of fans of the technology and its usage in cell phones. So it's proven to some degree to be successful in that regard, but it's never been, a full competitor against LCD devices. It remains kind of a niche device, but still worth checking out. And I'm particularly curious about, how, this latest phone e-ink device will do and how well does it stack up against, traditional phones. So before we get ahead of ourselves though, let's go ahead and just do a quick unboxing, and then we'll come back and I'll talk about my thoughts in terms of where we go from here, and particularly in how I'll be reviewing this device. Okay, let's check this out. All right, so here is our package from Shenzhen, and let's see what we've got. All right, here we've got the pretty standard Bigme packaging there. They tend to go with this white theme and kind of a copper lettering here. And there's some of our technical specs on the back. On the side, it says, inheriting classics, breaking through limits. Okay, that's something. And then on the edge, you can't see it, but it says Hibreak Pro. And as we already know, it has 8 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. So nothing new there. Let's keep going. Okay, padded top there. Pull out the device itself. Okay. And then got your user manual. Here you've got a little SIM card removal tool. There's your USB-C cable right there. And that is pretty much everything in the box. Okay, just before we start up, let's go ahead and take this SIM removal tool aside. The USB-C cable is actually an A to a C, so just FYI there. Here's a diagram. They have this both in English as well as Chinese of what's the different buttons are on the device, so you can see those there. And then the device itself actually comes with a case, so it comes prepackaged with this little rubbery case. Let's go ahead and take that off, so we can see what the device itself has, or looks like. There we go. And there it is. So there's the front. You've got this really nice little red button here on the side and a little bit of red print there. There's the back. And there's the other side with a couple, I think these are customizable buttons. And there's your infrared. You can barely see that on top with a microphone. And there's your SIM card tray down below with a USB-C and a speaker grill. So that is basically it. All right, so let's go ahead and boot this up and see what it takes to set it up. Let me go ahead and press in on the red button here. And here we go. Launching for the first time. All right, the front lighting has come on. That looks like that's the cold lighting. I saw we had 70% power. We'll go ahead. And that's interesting, it was in Chinese. Okay, now we're in full English, now that I've selected English. That's great, we'll just agree. And this Wi-Fi network, I'm gonna go ahead and log in. I'll skip ahead since I'm gonna put my password in there. Okay, we've got our Wi-Fi in. So here are some of the gesture settings. Let's take a look. So it looks like you've got the multitasking switcher or system tray basically on the the bottom left here, go back or to the home screen on the center, and full refresh rather on the right. And then you can go back by swiping in. I generally don't like that, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Let's go to the next step. Here you can go into your Bigme account. I'm not going to bother to do that. We'll skip that. We will skip that, if I can. Seems to be hung up here. Okay, I guess I just had to confirm. Okay, and here we are. We are up and running. Oh, we got to do an update. Of course we do. I'm going to go ahead and start this. We'll time it. Put on the little system timer here. Go ahead and go in. And let's see how big of an update this is going to be. All right, we'll come back and see how long it takes. Okay, we are back. It took about 34 minutes in total. And that included about 7 minutes of download, and then the rest of that was actually, whatever it was doing to update the software. That's pretty standard for e-ink devices. It's one of my frustrations as a filmer of these devices, which is that, you start filming, you get everything set up, you start filming, you've got all this momentum, and then you have to go through this 30+ minute update on e-ink devices. And it kind of stops you cold in the filming process. But if you get this device, basically you get the update and you just walk away for half an hour and do something else, and it's obviously just a one-off. It is interesting to see the contrast here between my normal phone, which is the Google Pixel Pro 7, and then of course here we've got the Bigme. Very similarly sized. The Pro is just slightly larger and has rounded edges. It does feel a little bit blockier to hold the Bigme. It feels you have blocky sides, and then the back feels particularly flat for some reason. That kind of sticks out to me. None of it's bad. I think the Pro is obviously nicer, but this is a higher end phone, right? And even though it's a couple of years old, this is kind of top of the line. This is really meant to be a mid-level phone. So for a mid-level, I think that this feels appropriate enough. Okay, let's go ahead and just do a little bit of having fun with the device just to get an initial feel for it. So I'm going to go ahead and power this on. Here we are. So we notice that, as I've said before in booting up, we've got the cold lighting going. So I'm going to go ahead and swipe down. If you go down here, there's a few different kind of presets, that you can set, but you can also do the sliders. So for example, this is the full intensity cold level lighting. And if I turn it off, it looks like that. And then if I went with warm lighting, you can see it's kind of this pale orange type of a color. And a reminder that e-ink is great outdoors, so you probably don't need any front lighting outdoors whatsoever. You can just go lights out using the macro there, because it seems perfect for outdoor use. But indoors, where you have darker environments, that's when you might want to use the front lighting. And I personally like to use a little bit of cold. Anyway, since we're here, just to highlight some of the quick start buttons that you have here on top. Obviously, you've got your airplane mode. You can turn your ring on and off. Location ability. This does have the ability to be a Wi-Fi hotspot. We've got a flashlight. Let's take a look at that. So yeah, pretty standard. Color inversion basically takes you into a dark mode. So if I click on that, you can see there you go. I will make the observation though that a lot of times people use dark mode because they're trying to just reduce the amount of eye strain from having such a light, bright light source, with a white background. That's not the case with e-ink devices. So, this is more of an aesthetic choice than it is something that is for functional reasons. Let's take a quick look at the e-ink center. Okay, you can see they have some standard presets here above, and they have some other options below. They're very similar to an e-ink device. I won't go over that in detail, but just interesting to see that here. Then if we go into the next page, so you might have noticed the floating ball. There's this kind of shortcut ball. If you click on, it's got all these shortcuts on it. I don't particularly care for that on my devices, so we're going to get rid of that here. And then just a few other kind of standard things. You can share your screen via Miracast, so that's true for Bigme eink devices as well. And they are basically, there you have it. They come up with these 2 pages of apps that you can see here, and we'll of course be delving deeper into those as we go into the actual review, but just wanted to kind of show it off. Let's take a look at notifications. There we go, pretty straightforward. And let's drop into settings and see what we have there. So there's your connection settings. Let's click on display. Obviously your sleep settings. There's your widgets, that's great. We'll be looking at that. System font size, so let me go large. Make that look a little nicer. Yeah, pretty standard. We'll go over this in a little more detail as I do my review. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Okay, there we go. So that is kind of our first look at the Bigme Hibreak Pro. Let's go into final thoughts, and I'll give you a sense of where I'll be going as I actually start to review this device. Okay, one more comment about the hardware before I give my final thoughts for this video. You do get a little bit of a rattle on some of the side buttons. So let's just take a second. I'm going to just shake the device. And I don't know if this is picked up on the microphone, but you can just hear the slight rattle. And if you move your fingers over the buttons, you get a slight rattle as well. It's not a huge deal. I get the same issue actually with my Pixel 7 Pro phone. But I've had phones in the past that don't do that, so I thought that was worth remarking. So it's not unusual, but it's not great either, but not terrible. So, all right, so where are we going to go? So I don't normally review phones. So this is a little bit outside my normal element. I tend to review e-ink note-taking devices and to a much lesser extent e-readers. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of put on the screen my thoughts about things or certain aspects of the device that I think I'll be looking at over the next few weeks. I'll either release 1 or 2 videos, just depending on how things go, to kind of share my experiences and my thoughts. And really, I'm just going to do this in comparison to the phone usage that I do normally from day to day. And how well does this device allow me to do the things that I do on my current kind of traditional, kind of higher end phone. So that'll be the sense or the perspective that I'll be coming in for this review. And we'll just kind of see where it goes. If there's anything in particular you have questions about or want me to review, pop those in the comments, and I'll try to incorporate those if I can. But I think that does it for this video. I really just kind of wanted to make this kind of a kickoff video to say I've got the device, and we'll start testing, and we'll see in the next few weeks or month how the device holds up and if I can recommend it or not. All right, until then, I hope you have a great day. Bye.